My name is Nadia. I'm 35 years old, a private school teacher in Chicago, and until recently, I believed I was married to the kindest man on earth. His name is Brian. Tall, charming, a financial advisor with a boyish grin and a flawless morning routine. Every Friday, for the last 2 years, Brian sent me flowers to my classroom. Always roses. Always with a little note. To my favorite person to come home to. Just because it's Friday and you're still the most beautiful woman I know. Or once, counting down the hours till I see you tonight. My students loved it. My coworkers envied it. Even the school receptionist used to say, "Your husband is raising the bar for every man in the city." And I believed that. I believed I was the lucky one. We had our routines. Morning coffee by 6:30. Kisses at the door by 7:15. Dinner together 3 times a week, even with our busy schedules. It all looked picture perfect. Until one Friday in March, the flowers didn't arrive. At first, I thought maybe there was a mix-up. Florists can be busy. Deliveries can get delayed. But by 2 p.m., when my students had left and I was packing up, there was still no knock on the door. No roses. No note. It bothered me more than it should have. I told myself I was being dramatic. But when I got home, Brian was already on the couch, watching a basketball game, drinking a beer like it was just any other Friday. "Hey babe," he said. "Rough day?" "No flowers today," I said lightly, watching his face. He glanced at me, then shrugged. "Oh, right. I meant to call them. Must have slipped my mind." That didn't sound like Brian. Not the man who remembered every one of our anniversaries. Not the man who once mailed roses to my classroom during a snowstorm. But I didn't press. I laughed it off. One missed delivery wasn't the end of the world. But then it happened again the next Friday. And the Friday after that. 3 Fridays. 3 silent days. 3 empty vases on my classroom windowsill. I started to feel uneasy. I'd never needed the flowers to feel loved before, but now the silence felt pointed. Like a door quietly closing behind me, one petal at a time. That 3rd Friday, I asked him directly. "Brian, is everything okay?" He looked up from his laptop and smiled like nothing was wrong. "Of course. Why? You just stopped sending flowers." He reached over and kissed my forehead. "You don't need roses to know I love you. Besides, you always say your students get too distracted when they show up." I did say that once. As a joke. The next Monday, I called the florist myself. It wasn't to accuse anyone. I just wanted to check if the subscription had ended or if there was a glitch in the delivery system. But what the woman on the phone said knocked the air out of me. "Ms. Nadia Harper, right? We actually still have a weekly delivery scheduled to your school. But the address was changed about a month ago." "Changed to what?" There was a pause. "Looks like it was rerouted to an office on West 8th. The recipient name is still Harper. But first name's Emma." "Emma." My stomach turned cold. I didn't know any Emma Harper. But I did know this, I wasn't the only Harper in my marriage anymore. I hung up, heart racing, hands ice cold. I sat in my car in the school parking lot for almost an hour, trying to understand. Had Brian changed the delivery himself? Why? Who was Emma? I didn't ask him right away. I needed more than just a name. I needed proof. So the next Friday, I drove to the address the florist gave me. An insurance firm, tucked between a nail salon and a cafe. I sat in my car and waited. I didn't even know what I was looking for. Then, just before noon, she walked out. Blonde, about 10 years younger than me, in a navy pencil skirt and white silk blouse. Holding roses. Red ones. With a little card tucked inside. She laughed as she read it. Then walked into the cafe next door, humming. I waited until she left. Then I went inside and asked the barista a simple question. Hi. Sorry to bother. Do you know that woman who just came in here with the flowers? The barista smiled. Oh, Emma. Yeah, she comes in every Friday around lunch. Sometimes her boyfriend meets her. Her boyfriend? The girl nodded. Yeah. Some finance guy. Real smooth. Always in a gray coat, always opens the door for her. They usually sit in the back booth, same table every time. I thanked her and left. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the man who had once sent me flowers just because it was Friday. He was eating lasagna, telling me about a boring conference call. I smiled. I nodded. Because I already knew what I was going to do next. The flowers might have stopped coming to me. But something far bigger was about to bloom. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept thinking about Emma. Not out of jealousy, but out of strategy. She didn't know, that much was obvious. No woman would smile that brightly over roses if she knew the sender was still sleeping next to a wife every night. And the way Brian talked about work that evening, calm, routine, innocent, told me one thing. He thought I'd never find out. But I had a name now. A face. A location. All I had to do was follow the stems back to their roots. So the next week, I did something I'd never done before in our entire marriage. I lied. Friday morning over coffee, I told Brian I was taking my students on a field trip and wouldn't be home until late. He barely blinked. Just kissed me goodbye and said, enjoy. At 11:30, I parked across the street from the cafe. Same one as last week. I had my sunglasses on, hair tucked under a cap. I looked more like a stakeout cop than a teacher. But I didn't care. I sat with the engine running. And right on cue, there she was. Emma. Holding this week's bouquet, lilies and pink roses. She looked happy. Peaceful. Like a woman in love who doesn't know she's been handed another woman's leftovers. And then, exactly 4 minutes later, he showed up. Brian. My husband. In the gray coat. Smiling like a teenager. He leaned down and kissed her. Not quick. Not nervous. Like a man who'd done it 100 times before. They sat at the back table. The one the barista mentioned. He held her hand across the table while she played with the ribbon on the bouquet. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I didn't need to. I already knew the script. He probably told her how rare she was. How different. How he never does this kind of thing, but she was worth it. Brian had lines I'd heard myself once. Before I wore his ring. I should have cried. But I didn't. Because suddenly, I felt something sharper. Clearer. Like a thread in my mind finally pulled tight. Emma wasn't the only one getting played. So was I. But not for long. That weekend, I didn't confront him. Not because I was afraid. But because I wanted to watch him dig his own grave a little deeper. I played the doting wife. Asked how his day was. Packed his lunch. Even complimented his tie choices. He beamed under the attention. Thought he was winning. What he didn't know was that I had created a brand new email under a different name, Eliza Miller. And, Eliza, just happened to apply for a job at Emma's firm as a contract copywriter. Within a week, I got a reply, they needed help with a new ad campaign. And guess who was CC'd on the onboarding email? Emma Harper, marketing manager. Things moved quickly after that. We had a Zoom call scheduled on Thursday. I wore a different hairstyle. Different glasses. Altered my voice just enough to sound unfamiliar. She was warm. Professional. Polished. She asked all the right questions. Gave thoughtful feedback. She was smart, I'll give her that. And kind. Which only made this worse. Because I could see it now, clearer than ever. Brian didn't pick her because she was evil. He picked her because she was new. Excited. Naive. The kind of woman who wouldn't question his stories yet. The call ended with a promise to follow up next week. But I already had what I needed. Now, it was time to deliver my flowers. The next Friday was our wedding anniversary. 8 years. I woke up early, made pancakes, set the table with little love notes under his plate, just like I used to. He looked almost sheepish. I didn't plan anything big this year, he said, scratching the back of his neck. Figured we'd keep it simple. Simple. After breakfast, he left for work. By 11 a.m., he was at the cafe again. I knew. Because this time, I wasn't parked across the street. I was inside. I had booked the table behind theirs. I wore a long coat, a sleek ponytail, and no makeup. Nothing that screamed, wife. But I didn't need to scream. I waited until he handed her the bouquet. Waited until she leaned in, laughing at something he said. Then I stood up. Walked over. Calm. Steady. He didn't see me until I was right next to them. The moment he looked up and saw me, he turned to stone. Emma glanced up, confused. Can we help you? I smiled and looked at Brian. No, sweetie. You already have. Then I turned to her and gently placed something on the table. A copy of my wedding photo. And next to it's a screenshot of the flower shop order history. With both names. Hers and mine. She stared at it. Blinked. Looked at Brian. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. I leaned down, my voice low and level. Just thought you should know who else your flowers were really for. Every Friday. For 2 years. And then I walked out. Calm. Poised. Because I still had one last bouquet to send. I wish I could tell you that I cried when I got home that day. I didn't. I made myself a cup of tea. Put on music. And I waited. At 2:17 p.m., Brian called me. I didn't pick up. At 2:23, he texted. We need to talk. Please come home. By 5 o'clock, I finally walked in. He was pacing, the wedding photo I'd left on the table still clutched in his hand. You didn't have to humiliate me like that, he snapped. I set down my purse. No. I really did. His face twisted. You've been spying on me. I laughed. A short, bitter sound. You sent me flowers every Friday like a ritual. Like a signature. I just followed the scent. He tried to explain. He really did. Claimed it was emotional confusion, that Emma didn't mean anything, that I had been distant, that the spark had faded, every single excuse in the cliché cheater handbook. I let him ramble. Let him beg. And when he was done, I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the papers I had printed the night before. Divorce. Filed. Signed. Stamped. He blinked like he'd been slapped. You're serious? As serious as you were every time you pressed, confirm order on those flowers. He looked at me like he was seeing a stranger. And in that moment, I realized, he was. Because I was no longer the woman who waited for him. I was the woman who walked away before the last petal fell. 2 weeks later. Emma quit the company. She never responded to the follow-up email from Eliza Miller. Word got around that she moved back to Denver. I don't blame her. It wasn't her fault, not really. She just got caught in the same illusion I did, believing Brian could be honest. Brian moved out. Tried for a few weeks to win me back. But once I changed my number, changed the locks, and changed the music in the house, he faded like a scent left too long in the air. But I wasn't done. Not yet. There was one more delivery to make. I returned to the flower shop. The same place that had helped him lie to me. I spoke to the manager. Told her what happened. She was horrified, and offered me something for free. But I didn't want free. I wanted precision. I placed one final order. A Friday delivery. To Brian's new apartment. The card read. To the man who taught me to look closer at every rose. You planted a lie, and it bloomed beautifully. Asterisk, but now it's time for me to grow something real. Asterisk. Nadia. Inside the box, not roses. Cactus plants. Sharp. Resilient. Harder to kill. Just like me. 1 year later. People ask if I'm bitter. I'm not. Because sometimes, you need to lose everything comfortable to find something true. I started my own tutoring business. It's thriving. I get thank you notes now, not from florists or fake lovers, but from parents, kids, and teachers who see the value I bring. And every Friday, I still get flowers. Only now, I send them to myself. Because I've learned something Brian never did. Love isn't proven by a bouquet. It's proven by showing up, even when no one else does. And I will always show up for me.